You know, it's always fun for people to see things that they've created, you know, based on the things that they've said.
My name is Peter Cope, and welcome to Attack Theater's presentation of Some Assembly Required. Today, we are going to go on a creative journey where we will assemble a brand new work of art based upon your reactions and responses to a work of art.
Some Assembly Required Public is really a great example of how we value the role of the audience in the creative process.
What we have to do is the assembly part of the Some Assembly Required. So the first thing that I need you to do is everyone take a look at this public art piece.
Kind of like that's actually being held by the trees.
She's saying it's being held by a tree. Tell me what you see that says it's being held by the tree.
Like the trunks, actually.
We want the audience to participate. We want their ideas to influence our movement and our movement to influence their ideas and to have a conversation that results in a shared performance experience.
I think it's a journey of, into Attack Theater, so they, get firsthand what it's like and what we experience, and how movement is generated, and how things come about, and what inspires us and what inspires them.
Some Assembly Required was first done by Michelle and I and recorded music in 1995.
One of the things that we realized early on is that Some Assembly Required is really more of a concept than it is an actual performance. And I think we've really tested that in the last couple of years.
What's different about this process compared to the last process of SAR that we did in 2010 was that we went to 10 different galleries, and they were all different shows with different people. Now we repeated artwork.
Do you see something?
It looks like a U, Mom. Right, Mom?
It looks like a U. Excellent. So looking at some letters.
We're going to start with this idea. Somebody was talking about the letter U, that this is a sideways U. But I'm going to take a little bit of artistic license, and instead of it being a sideways letter U, it's going to be a sideways U.
One of the big things that changed for us is that we were really focused on one work of art and then the environment. And normally we just really focus on 1, 2, 3 works of art, but this one really took into consideration with public art not just the artistic choices of that piece, but also those choices in relationship to the city environment that surrounded it.
I really enjoyed the aspect where we got to layer emotions or concepts or ideas on top of movement that we've already created, because that's something I haven't really done before.
So what we're going to start with today is the blank canvas. Now all of you have what we like to call the score. That is your roadmap.
Well, the development of the bass phrase, we wanted to create a piece of dance that was interesting to look at, architecturally captivating. So it was very linear and vertical.
The challenge of practicing just that as a dance phrase was to do it and make it boring, not put any emotion or physical interest into it beyond what was in the bass choreography, because that's the point of our bass phrase. We needed to be a blank canvas.
It was clean and what we thought called simple and directly focused, so that when we did begin to add things to it, there was always this solid underpinning for the work.
So as a dancer, I very much tried to hang on to some of that original movement and keep it recognizable to the end of the performance so that it would differentiate itself from the improvs and overlays that we inserted.
That makes people feel really relaxed. And when people are relaxed, and they still have to stay engaged, because like, well, what was that one from? Oh, yeah, I remember that. They have a different way of engaging with the final performance, or even with the fellow audience members and also with the performers.
The most memorable moments are the ones actually when I either wasn't involved in that particular improvisation or I was the person who was facilitating but not dancing, because I could really take everything in as a whole. Visually, I could take in the dancer downstage, the two on the side being, doing smaller movements, and then the visual art behind. And it was being able to take in that whole environment that for me created some of the most emotional and oftentimes very funny and clever moments.
Having a different audience look at the same piece of artwork produced the most different dances at Allegheny Center when we were reacting to the big blue square structure. But in our first experience there, we mostly had an adult audience, and they saw all sorts of corporate intonations into the piece, and they had a very spatial, open spatial awareness of how that square piece fit into the square nature of the surrounds. When we did the performance again in the morning, on a Saturday morning, we had a ton of kids in the audience, and they had very different ideas about what that art meant.
There was a ninja battle that happened with robots, and at one point we had this, someone said it looked like a logo for like a car company, and I think Dave was the cello player and Ian was the drummer for that show. And they created this like little jingle, and we had to do this like car commercial.
Everything's going smooth on my drive, but wait, I'm out of diesel. What do you do when you're out of diesel? Well, if you're smart, I'll tell you what you do. Head on down to Cummins Diesel Motor Company for all your diesel needs. We'll take care of you. We'll get you on your way. You might not even know where you're going. But let me tell you, we know where you're going. And where you're going is up.
Even at one point in Allegheny Center, we did one performance. I don't remember if it was the first or second one we did. We had a guy, I forgot, he made some comment about the sculpture looking like it was, you were looking through a window. And so Peter actually had him come up during that section of the dance, during that improv, and he would create, or the dancers would create a window that he could look out.
You guys have to create something new so that every time he looks through this peephole, he's seeing a completely new shape. So the only way they're going to know to make a new shape, and they have to stay in that shape until you turn away. Then they'll make a new shape, and you look back through. So every time you look through that hole is a moment of discovery. Ready?
He took ownership of that, and I think that that's what makes Attack Theater so accessible, is because we are not afraid to interact with the general public.
Typically, when an audience comes to see an end product, we want the magic to be there. We want it to be effortless. But at the same time, for Attack Theater, if we really want an audience to stay actively engaged and curious and wanting to know more, I really feel like we have to pull back the curtains a little bit.
Some Assembly Required is a perfect example of this, because we ask the audience to give us topics on which we're going to dance.
I think it's a journey into Attack Theater, because it's the same process we go through.
The process is a really great base, from the original inception in 1995 to what we did in 2012.
I mean, you could go around the country doing SARs, and I think that would be lots of fun and really interesting to hear and see what people think about different artwork across the country.
I think that what hopefully comes out of this for an audience after they've spent an hour and a half really talking and feeling and going through an artistic process in front of a specific work of art is that it opens their mind to all the works of art, all the aesthetic objects that are in their life.
So this process really does fit in with that, with the Attack Theater desire to bring people unabashedly and passionately into the creative process and the final product, because it does let them participate fully.